Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my Star Ocean Second Story R perspective that I played on Steam on PC. And I overall enjoyed it. This is the second game in the series, the first game in the series to be released outside of Japan. And it's a remake of that game. And I actually really had a fun time with it. Now, I do have some issues with it where I don't go completely into like double thumbs up. You need to go out and play this right now. But if you are a JRPG veteran and you kind of want more of an old school kind of one, they do a kind of pixel art style with some anime kind of stand-ins, almost kind of like dating sims, where you get the characters talking about what's kind of going on. You get some kind of CGI graphics on certain kind of things when they're doing some crazy ass shit towards the end. But it's mainly in the style of being like a 2.5D kind of thing going on, overworld and everything like that. And you follow Claude C. Kenny, or Reina, on the planet of Expel. So you get to pick one or the other. I picked Claude just to kind of see what kind of perspective that kind of was. Nothing against Reina. I didn't know what was kind of going to be. I always kind of want to look into the tech kind of aspects, and that's kind of why I chose Claude, to kind of see what kind of goes on there. And he, of course, is working with his father, who's like this famous admiral. He has all those kind of hang-ups that come on with that. They're like investigating this kind of thing, and he gets pretty much teleported to Expel, runs into Reina, and she immediately thinks he's like this hero of light kind of thing because he's got this like phaser kind of gun thing. Very much kind of on the kind of Star Trek kind of stuff. I kind of like how I see how Star Trek has kind of influenced this kind of thing, and you're on this underdeveloped planet and seeing what's kind of going on with the sorcery globe. Now, that's the main kind of crux that is pretty much the driving force of the main, I would almost say, first part of the whole game, but it takes up a bigger chunk than like the first part until you get to the end, and you pretty much get this kind of role reversal kind of thing of like, oh, okay, so it definitely reminded me of the sixth entry, where the sixth entry actually had more of a kind of balance of like, okay, this is an underdeveloped planet, some shenanigans are going on, and then bringing up the whole Scorpion network and everything. This one, you're like, oh, okay, you're doing all this kind of stuff. It's like, all right, monsters and shit like that. I know there's probably some kind of tech aspect behind this. What's kind of going on? And we're like, come on. And it just takes so long to kind of get there. Not that I hate the sword and sorcery kind of thing. I love a good fantasy kind of thing. And I do really like this series for mashing up the tech and the sword and sorcery as well. Where, in certain aspects, it's like, okay, their magic is Claude's science pretty much at this point with the Pangalactic Federation. And I love seeing his dad kind of pop up trying to fucking find his ass of like, my son got teleported to a fucking thing and told him to like check this shit out. I was like, fuck, motherfucker! So we pretty much see them kind of going around. We pick and choose what characters we want to kind of bring along. I chose Celine, just to have another kind of magic user, Opera, Ernest, Priestess, Welch, and Leon. Just to pretty much have a kind of rounded out kind of party. I thought that the private actions were kind of better done in the Divine Force. I know that sounds kind of probably weird, but I was also following a guide to kind of get a general idea of certain kind of things, but I wouldn't know what would set off certain kind of private actions to get more kind of story and character development. That's really important to me. And sometimes I'd get something that the guide wouldn't talk about, and sometimes I wouldn't get certain ones that the guide would talk about. I'm like, okay, whatever. So it just kind of threw me off on certain kind of things. Now, mainly probably because I had a certain kind of amalgamation of characters that probably the writers of the guides didn't have, so it could have just been that kind of thing. So I don't really throw shade at them or anything like that for it. It's just like, what's kind of going on here? And I enjoyed the combat. I'm kind of more button mash the kind of thing, and I would almost have training on all the time because I was trying to make sure that I was leveled up enough for stuff, and it kind of made me not completely overpowered, because I was able to get certain kind of like high-end gear pretty early on to kind of break the game, which didn't really completely and utterly break combat for me. The only times I would really get like game over things were when status things would take out the whole party and wipe it like that. And I'm like, what's kind of going on here? Why isn't the AI kind of doing what it kind of needs to do? Because it would then be running around the arena. And the thing is, it follows more of a kind of, how would I say it, a Tales kind of way of how the action combat's going. Or if you've played the Divine Force, kind of along the same kind of route, except you don't need action points. I'm just going around hitting, and then sometimes using my mana kind of skills to do things to either break shields, to pretty much discombobulate a motherfucker, and then just keep beating wholesale ass, or kind of take down their health in a faster kind of way. Claude had some interesting kind of abilities, mainly his Helmbreaker for breaking kind of shields, and then this kind of Life Sword one to kind of keep it all going. The other characters had some interesting ones, but I kept with Claude, Celine, Opera, and Reyna. Reyna mainly for her healing capabilities. It was interesting to see pretty much Claude and Reyna kind of going through. I pretty much had them shipped of what was going on, and then getting to the enemy like, Claude, you're gonna be dead! Holy fucking shit! It's like, okay, but that's because I went through and made sure that she had the kind of friendship bond points to make sure that I would be able to get to that point at the end. But you're going around, you're getting stuff from like these kings and kingdoms, kind of reminiscent of kind of Final Fantasy, trying to get to the sorcery globe because monsters and everything are spawning out and making crazy ass shit. Leon, this little kid made dude, the one that I like put it, recruited into my party system and everything, makes this giant ass gun. Is like, oh yeah, that's Lacquer's Hope and everything like that. Liqueur's Hope is like, alright, it's just a big fucking gun. I mean, that kind of helps in certain kind of instances, but it only does one certain kind of thing. And then we find out as they get to the sorcery globe that, oh god, they're aliens, they're Needians, the 10 wise men kind of stuff. It's like we hadn't really had a kind of defining antagonistical force up until this point. And then we're just shunted, just like lore dumped on this kind of shit. It's like, okay. And then we kind of like get our asses beat and put onto energy need. And that Reyna is from Need, from like, she's actually like over 700 million years old. I was like, okay, whatever, because of time dilation and stuff. Like the Needians were like the super hyper advanced race, and then they like fought with these 10 wise men, which actually, if you dig into the lore, they're kind of their super soldier kind of shit that they made. And they're like, yeah, fuck you assholes, and decided to pretty much fuck shit up and tried to control the universe, being like, rah, rah, rah. And then you pretty much just like go through the rest of their kind of shit. Like, they're not really developed that well at all, unless you pretty much dig into the lore, and even then the development isn't really up to that kind of level that your main driving antagonistic force in a video game or any kind of medium should be. Now, it's not complete and utter shit. They're more like, "Mah, you can't beat us, blah!" And then doing like your basic typical villain shit. It's not on the level where they're like completely horrendous, but they do the barest minimum to pretty much hit the kind of zero threshold of like, this is the standard. You need them to at least do this. And it's pretty much their late introduction. I would almost be like, okay, how do I explain this? It's almost like when Haru was introduced in Persona. Like, that kind of level of lateness. And the thing is, she is vastly better developed in Persona 5 than what these villains are. And the villains should be driving the narrative, because at this point, we're just like, we gotta find out what's going on with the Sorcery Globe and stop this shit. So, right? And then we find out that Expel's destroyed, they're on this energy need place, and then we have to do all these kind of trials and stuff, and it's your typical JRPG stuff. And it's executed fairly well enough, but I'm just like, okay, we really wasted a lot of time doing the typical kind of JRPG stuff in the beginning. We really needed to develop more of this kind of stuff, and we're still doing the kind of typical stuff as we kind of race towards the end, do the kind of tower thing, and we get the kind of weapons that we need. It even feels like that at the end. We're like rushing. It's like, okay, it'll take 3 days. Our heroes get like the weapons and stuff that, okay. And the thing is, if you get your highest tier kind of ultimate weapons, you wouldn't be switching to these weapons from Claude or Reyna anyway. They just come up with this, okay, these are your main antimatter things, and then here's these other things you can put on your weapons that do the same fucking thing. And then you can just wreck all wholesale ass on the 10 Wise Men. And the thing is, they really didn't give me that much trouble, except for the last one, which would do a party wipe because of certain kind of conditions or whatnot that it would do. And even then, it only took me like a couple of other tries potentially to actively just like kick its ass before you then kind of get through. Everything is kind of saved. Energy needs sacrifices itself to bring back Expel and Claude's father because, oh no, they did this whole kind of super weapon thing and destroyed Claude's father's ship. But everything's brought back. They're back on Expel and everything, and we just check in with them pretty much towards the end. We really don't have enough time to really develop them as villains and Reyna's whole kind of processing of her being a Nedian and finding out about her mother and everything, because that was one of her personal quests, to go out into the world and learn more about herself and her real parents. She still views the woman who raised her, because she was found at like 2 in the sacred forest and was raised up in that town, but it just pretty much takes a back seat as we're doing all these kind of... It's almost like they had an idea, and then they got stuck in the minutiae details of how they would need to get to certain kind of things. It's like, okay, we need to get to the sorcery gloves, and they put all these different kind of like A, B, C, D steps in there, when it just took longer to get through all of those steps. And then they're like, ah, shit, we gotta have to bum rush the ending. And it's like, here are the villains, here's what's going on, here's this like quadratic sphere thing, here's this quadratic key and shit. And it's like, okay, alright. And then it gets into like the RNG kind of aspects of pretty much doing skills and all that kind of stuff, trying to level up your kind of points and whatnot. I kind of screwed up a little bit and was like putting stuff into certain kind of battle points that I really didn't need to, and instead needed to kind of like go for arts. But even with that kind of fuck up, as I was doing the kind of training thing, which did put me at a disadvantage on a lot of different kind of fights, but it gave me more experience and full, which I still really didn't use much at the end. I was mainly trying to do certain kind of things for more kind of experience and more points to level up, kind of like the outer group that I never actually used. It just was like, okay, I only kind of do that in certain kind of games, just in case they do kind of like a party split thing where I need to switch out certain kind of characters. That didn't really happen here. I just stuck with my main 4 and was able to kind of like kick wholesale ass as things was going on. So I'm not saying it's a complete cakewalk. Definitely not saying that. I still had some kind of hard moments of going through, and I'd be like, okay, fucking, I'm gonna turn off the scouting so that way the monsters aren't just completely and utterly bum rushing me and making this last longer than it needs to. And because I was doing that, I'm like, okay, this is taking longer than it needs. Turn that off, actually get to my objective and kind of deal with what's going on. I'm always worried that I'm going to be like under-leveled or whatnot, and I won't have the tools that I need to take on a challenge. That really didn't happen too much here, mainly also because I broke it and accidentally was able to get Claude's and Reyna's ultimate kind of weapons, though that really doesn't help you out much on Reyna's front. I was mainly controlling Claude pretty much the entire time, and just using the sword to do kind of crazy-ass shit. Not too crazy, mind you. It's supposed to daze some motherfuckers when it's cracking out shit, but it didn't do too much. I really didn't do much with the crafting system like I was doing with the Divine Force. That seems to be at least a better kind of thing of what was kind of going on. Now, since doing the remake, they might have made these systems better and easier to deal with, which, if they did, thank God. Like, I would rather have a kind of easier time of working around with the systems and picking and choosing what I want to interact with, rather than being forced to do stupid, mundane shit, go out and grind for something that's going to give me pretty much either just a cosmetic that I don't care about, or like the barest minimum of an improvement that I could have just been like, I could have been done with this at this point. Like, if it only gives you a 0.2% and you get like a certain kind of boss fight done like in like 2 seconds instead of like 3, that's not that much that I'm going for. If, however, I'm interacting with that system and I get something where a boss fight would take me like 10 minutes and it's able to fucking kill the fucking shit out of that thing in like 10 seconds or less, you bet I'm gonna go for that motherfucker to kind of go for that kind of thing. That's just the kind of fun things that are in there for RPGs and JRPGs for me. Let's see. Yeah, my main issue with it is mainly the story, because that's the main kind of crux that I get in with these kind of games. The gameplay is serviceable. Like, it's not turn-based, so if you're like, I hate turn-based, that's not this. You do have random encounters and everything that you go through. You still have to interact with grinding and everything, but I think it gives you a lot more power and leeway to actually interact with the game on how you want. You can train yourself up and like pretty much grind out some motherfuckers in the beginning and then kind of like tool that down and be able to be the kind of badass you want to be. You can choose kind of what kind of systems you want to interact with. If you want to craft things, cool. If you just want to wait and let the game kind of give you the kind of weaponry that you want or need, I think that's also a viable strategy. Now, I didn't go with that strategy, so I haven't played through it that way, so your mileage would vary on that, so think about that when you're going through it. Also, I didn't have really any kind of weird technical issues when playing the game on my rig. It ran smoothly. I would have to try and fuck around with doing stuff with like VSync and certain kind of screen tearing, but nothing where the game broke or attempted to try and kill my PC in any kind of way. That is an important thing, as I'm seeing with this, that I really wouldn't, well, normally would not have to talk about on consoles. I say normally, it's just because quality has gone to a certain kind of point that there would be kind of places now where even console games would run the risk of pretty much bricking or killing your console. So I always want to make sure that I touch upon those points, because being able... talking about like a perspective on a video game and actually playing it is you have to also be like, yes, this game should not kill your fucking system or have to go, if you have to go through 30 fucking steps to make it work on your hardware, that's not right, that's not cool, holy fucking shit, no thank you. So I always want to hit that kind of point. And now, this isn't really, I don't think, a demanding kind of game, but make sure that you check any kind of specs that you do if you decide to play it on PC. And then console, I wouldn't, since it would normally be locked to whatever kind of hardware kind of thing would be going on, I think you would be fine on those kind of aspects. Now, recommending it, if you're into the Star Ocean franchise, I think it's a nice serviceable one to kind of like get you into the lore and everything. If you're a really hardcore fan, definitely, yeah. If you are attempting to figure out the kind of world and understand how it's kind of going on, I would definitely actually kind of recommend this one over the Divine Force, because it's a kind of shorter one. You can kind of get into the whole kind of aspects of like, okay, it's galactic, here's kind of what's kind of going on. It does the same kind of spiel. Oh, advanced dude gets put on undeveloped world, let's see what's going on here, and working it out that kind of way. It's like, okay. Now, I haven't played any kind of other ones yet, though I am planning on looking into more of them, because I do like the Star Trek kind of influences on this series, and I'm interested to see how certain other kind of games work on this. I can understand why people had certain problems and issues with like the Divine Force, but I can also understand the certain kind of issues that are going on with this one, even though this one is more up my alley and more of the kind of RPG I would like to play, JRPG as well. Yes, my main, I like the lore, the world building and everything. It's just the story on this one, the plotting, is what got really messy. I like the characters, but there needed to be better massaging and execution of working the characters more organically into what was kind of going on and what would kind of be happening within the story as well. Because you're just like, we are on our quest! That's kind of Final Fantasy-esque. We're going for the sorcery glove. And it's like, the thing is, that takes way too long, and then we get everything kind of dumped at us, and it's like, oh yeah, here you go. It's like, oh, okay. So that is the only thing that I'd really, really fix. I didn't have to fight any really controls or anything. Anything that I really had to deal with was mainly like status based that would be popping up. And also running around and actually trying to hit a motherfucker sometimes. That was a kind of annoyance, and I'm like, all right, because all right, here you go, here you go. Here's Claude. It's like, I'm gonna fight you, and then the enemy's like, and it's always kind of like in a circle. It's like, get back here. You're trying to like hit him with like your physical attack. It's like, get fucking back here. It's like, it's really, it sometimes gets annoying, but never on the level of frustration where it'd be like, calm the fuck on. It's not like I'm sitting there for like, it would only lengthen something up by like maybe at most a minute or two. It's never to the point where I'm sitting there for an hour plus being like, Claude, hit the motherfucking pinata, dude. I mean, he's just fucking like, it's like, no, stop with all the left turns. It's not NASCAR. No, it never reached that level of annoyance. That would be fucking horrendous. Holy goddamn shit. And if anything, that usually only happens with like the last enemy. So then you got your spellcasters kind of on the outside. You got Opera who's going in for some physicals as well, and you got yourself, me controlling Claude, being like, yeah, motherfucker, I'm gonna get your goddamn little shitty ass. Yeah. So those are my opinions on the game. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.